Hey Ann, how you doing today?
Good.
Doing well?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I've been working still on the fear of leaving the home for extended periods of time, like vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a little harder recently because I have this planned trip with a friend of mine coming up in a few months, and that's kind of been weighing on my mind.
All right, where's the trip to?
Georgia.
Mm-hmm. And how long will you be there?
She wants to go like 6 days, but
6 days?
Yeah, I'm not sure with work and school and everything I can make the full 6 days, and plus I'm a little nervous to go that long. So
Mm-hmm. That's a long time for you.
it is, yes.
Yeah. So when did you discover this trip was going to be?
Actually, just a few days ago, she messaged me and said, "Hey, you want to go with me, and we'll go golfing and swimming." I love golfing, like I want to go,
Mm-hmm.
but I just have these, a little nervous about leaving.
A little nervous.
Mm-hmm.
So when she made that call, that was just a couple of days ago,
Mm-hmm.
what was the first thought you had?
God, I can't go that long. That was my first thought. That's too long. But then it was like, wow, this would be great. I want to go down there golfing so bad and get away from the cold weather. So, I mean, my immediate thought was, no, not that long, but yes, I want to go.
All right, so you had two kind of conflicting thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
right? So one is I could never go that long. 6 days, way too long. And the other one is that would be enjoyable. You'd enjoy that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So which way are you leaning right now?
I want to go, but maybe not for 6 days. Maybe just like a long weekend.
Like 3, 4 days?
2 would be ideal, but
2?
2 would probably be ideal, but 2 to 3 days, yeah.
All right. So what do you think is causing this worry about being gone more than 2 days?
I don't know. I mean, I've always, as a late teenager in my 20s, I've always had just nervous to leave home. As much as I love being home, I love to travel too and do different things. It's just, I guess I'm just afraid something will happen when I'm not around.
All right, so you're afraid something will happen
Mm-hmm.
to your house, or?
Well, I have pets, so I worry about them.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are getting older, so I worry about them. Mainly like my immediate family. Mainly, I guess, my dad, because he's had a history of heart attacks, and then my pets. I just worry something will happen and I won't be there.
And how about when you were younger? You said this problem's been out for a while.
It's the same thing.
The same thing. So mostly family,
Mm-hmm.
and now some pets.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had pets then too. So.
You had pets then too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's really what's bothering you here,
Mm-hmm.
is that you'll be away, and that's when something will happen,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll be something bad.
Mm-hmm.
What about coming back? Like you could come back.
Yeah.
But
Like
that-
I'm ready to come back, but then I'm missing, because I'm like, man, I really don't want to go back to that home. Like I want to go back to my family and everything's okay, but I miss, where I just left because it's away from home. I know it sounds really conflicting and weird, but I'd like to get away. I enjoy being away from this small town, so.
Yeah, so you have feelings that are fighting one another.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And right now the thought anyway of, I would like to go on the trip is winning, but the fear thought is kind of dragging you down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's the sensation? Anxiety or?
Yeah, I get anxious, yeah. My heart feels like it's heavy, my chest it's heavy, and all these thoughts go through my mind, like, I know my parents, somebody could watch my pets, but they may not take care of them like I would. I don't know, it's just, they'll take care of them, I know, but they'll miss me, and they might tear my house up. I don't know, all these thoughts go through my mind that seem crazy to me.
So it seems like an endless stream of worries.
Yeah.
Surrounding family and the
Mm-hmm.
pets and what might happen.
Mm-hmm.
So really that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's what might happen. It's the uncertainty.
Right, yeah.
So has anything ever happened?
No. No.
Nothing happened.
Uh-huh.
So far, all this worrying and anxiety really hasn't paid any dividends.
No.
Do you end up going on the trips anyway?
Yes, and now that I'm older. When I was younger, I probably wouldn't, like an overnight, but now that I'm older, yes, I do. I just say, I got to live my life, and it'll be okay. Like, I just try to tell myself, they're in good hands. If something happens, somebody will call me, but then I feel like, oh, but I'm going to be hours away, I'm a plane ride away, and then I get thinking about that, but I do go.
But you didn't in the past.
No.
So something changed. What changed?
I don't know. I really, I don't know. I don't know what made a difference. Maybe I just feel more I don't know, I want to say in control, but now that I'm living on my own, because that's when I wouldn't go is when I lived at home with my parents still, which seems weird because somebody was always there to look after my animals, but now that I'm living on my own, maybe I just feel more responsible that I have to go do these things. I really don't know what changed.
All right, so you're not sure what changed, but you used to not go, now you do go. So when you're down there, or wherever you're going, the trip, you're feeling better, like you're enjoying yourself, but you're also worried at the same time?
Not too much. Once I get there, I'm usually okay. Maybe the first night I get a little worried, and then maybe when I'm getting ready to come home, I'm like a little anxious. I'm ready to get home to make sure everything's okay.
And the rest of the time?
I'm usually okay. There might be some alcohol involved, so it kind of limits my anxiety. No, but once I get into like playing the golf and all that, I really do allow myself to enjoy it. It's just, it seems like it's going and coming. That's.
All right, so the problem really isn't when you're there.
It's leading up to.
The problem is now.
Yes.
Leading up to, right?
Yes.
Exactly. And maybe just the first half day or day when you're there, right? And maybe the last half day or day you're there.
Yeah. It's like a plane. Like, I don't have a problem riding, like flying out, but it's the thinking, like while I'm waiting for the plane, like, oh, what if a terrorist is on there? What if we crash? I'll think about all that before, but once I'm there and on the plane, it's like, right, take off. I'm fine. I'm completely fine. I'm not anxious. It's leading up to the actual event that makes me anxious.
All right, so it's anticipation. So that's the worst part. Right? So the period between now and when you leave is going to be the worst part.
Yes.
But you'll probably still go.
Probably, but I'll have changed my mind probably a dozen times before I actually say, yes, I'm going.
And when you do go, you'll have a good time. And the probability of something happening that you're worried about, based on the history, seems low.
Yeah.
Something could happen, certainly.
Sure.
But it hasn't so far. All right, so there's a few angles here. So what happens if you go down there and a bad scenario or a worst case scenario does happen?
I don't know. I try not to think that far. If I get thinking about it, I try to like shut it out. I don't want to think about the worst. I guess the worst, I'll get on the plane and come home, and I'll deal with it then. But
all right, so you'll return. And the best case scenario would be you enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Which is the more likely, historically, that's the more likely scenario.
Yeah. But it still doesn't stop me from worrying when I get these trips planned.
Yeah, so the probabilities of it really doesn't alleviate the worry. The worry's still there.
Right.
Even though you know the worry is probably going to transition to enjoyment. And looking forward to that, that doesn't...
No, not at all.
That doesn't relieve any of the anxiety.
Not at all.
So what are you thinking when you're thinking about the trip now? Like if you were to think about getting ready to go on this trip, what would go through your mind? What specific thoughts?
Like I gotta get my house cleaned up and make sure my animals they have enough food, and like preparing to leave.
Preparing is productive.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, how about the thoughts that you feel more connected to the worrying?
Probably like I want to say I don't know. I really, it's kind of hard. Like I can't say buy enough to my parents, or I can't say buy enough to my pets. Like I feel like Like I don't know. I don't really, that's, I guess, part of the problem. I don't know what I'm connecting it to. I just get really anxious.
So if you don't tell them goodbye enough times.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, I know it sounds so.
Well, it sounds like maybe if you don't say goodbye enough times and settle that you'll feel guilty if something happens.
Maybe.
Like you regret it.
Maybe. I don't know. I just know that's what I think about when. That's the only thing that first comes to my mind when you ask me to connect the thoughts to the worry, and I think about telling everybody bye.
So that's a focal point of this anxiety in some way, right?
Like
the
letting
process.
go for a few days. Yeah.
And the way you start to let go is when you tell them goodbye.
Yeah.
So what do you find yourself doing? Do you say goodbye and then leave and then come back, or call them up and say?
No, I just finally say bye. I'll talk to you later. Love you. You know, I'll check in when I land or whatever, and then that's it. And it's like I just have to try to breathe and just put those thoughts behind me. Because once I say it, it's like, okay, that's it. I'm gone.
But your thoughts are still coming. Thoughts are still coming and say, you should have said goodbye one more time.
No, it's not. I don't know. No, that doesn't come to my mind.
That you didn't say goodbye well enough.
I don't know.
Yeah, like I'm trying to get
yeah.
what's the property of saying goodbye that you feel like you're not doing well enough?
Maybe it's just the fact that I'm leaving, and I shouldn't leave.
All right.
Maybe. Now that you say that, yeah, maybe I feel like maybe it's just the guilt of leaving.
So the act of leaving itself leaves you guilty.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you guilty of?
Not being there if something happens.
So abandoning them
Maybe.
for a short time, neglecting them for a short time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it felt like when you were younger? When you weren't able to travel, when it did stop you, anxiety did stop you?
Probably, maybe I did feel a little guilty.
And now you're in, would you say, more of a caregiver role than you were then?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, I'm the youngest of me and my sister, but my parents have always looked up to me to be the responsible one and make sure everything's taken care of. So I probably kind of allowed myself to take on that role of the caregiver more so, or be the more responsible one of the two.
So to be the responsible one, there needs to be guilt when you leave.
I guess. Maybe I should stay home and be responsible. And they don't make me feel guilty. They say, go have a good time. Your babies will be okay. We'll take care of them. I mean, I know they're in good hands. That's what makes it so difficult. I know they'll be okay, but I just feel like I probably shouldn't go.
So there's not another person driving this guilt towards you.
Yeah, it's me.
It's coming in from inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if I leave, well, I'm responsible. And if I leave, something bad will happen, and that'll be on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't there to fix it or take care of it or make it better. Like I put it on somebody else that have to do with that. Yeah.
So it's a fear of being caught as irresponsible.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, because if something happened to my pets, then my parents, I know they'll take care of them, but they would have to be the one doing that, and I wouldn't be there for them. And I'd want to be there. If something happened to my dad, it'd be on my mom, and I'd want to be there to help and support and, do what I can.
And you could be, if you left, it would just take you a day's travel or whatever, however far away you went, right? So.
Yeah.
But that's still doesn't help relieve your anxiety.
No,
Now you can come
really.
back doesn't help.
Not really. No, because it's like I want immediate access. Like I want to be able to be right there within minutes if they need me.
Have you ever taken a trip that was like within less than 4 hours driving distance or something?
Mm-hmm.
That's overnight?
Mm-hmm.
Does that cause the same anxiety? It does?
Mm-hmm.
But you can get back fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not as bad, but yeah, if I go stay with a friend for like an overnight, on the way up sometimes I'm thinking I should just stay home. Or I could be right in the same town sometimes, that if I wake up at 5 in the morning, I just get up and go home, because I just start feeling really anxious and I want to be home.
So the closer you are, it helps a little, but it sounds like a good part of the anxiety is still there.
Mm-hmm.
So it really doesn't matter where you go. It's the fact that you're not home.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you're not able to fully be responsible in the way that you view it.
When I work 20-hour shifts and I have to work the overnight, I will most of the time take my break and go home in between to check on the house and feed my pets. And yeah.
So at 20, that's a long shift. So a 20-hour shift, at what point do you become anxious? When do you start to notice those thoughts and feelings?
Probably usually like 6-7 hours into it, just depends. Like now it's getting dark, so when it kind of gets dark, if I don't leave the light on or something, I get a little anxious. I feel like I need to go home and leave the light on and, just let my pets know I'm coming back. And it's weird, and I know they miss me. But if I'm busy, then I don't really think about it. So if I'm busy at work doing something, I don't really think about it until I stop what I'm doing, or I slow down and I'm thinking, wow, I got 10 more hours or 8 more hours. Sometimes I go home, sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's worse than others.
All right. So if you're busy at work, the same reality exists, meaning your pets are alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the way you're responding to it is different.
Yeah.
You're less anxious.
Probably because I know I'm close, I can get there. I know I'm in control to be able to go there to a degree.
Well, but let's say not at work. Let's say when you're on the vacations in those days in the middle, when you're enjoying yourself. Is that a distraction? Like the more you enjoy yourself, the less you're...
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the same reality exists.
Yeah.
They're alone. All right. So really it's your way of viewing things that's leading to your anxiety. It's not necessarily what's actually happening. Right?
That's my perception.
It's your perception of what's happening, or could happen.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in this case, not so much what is happening, as what you worry
could
happen.
Definitely.
Yeah, because nothing's happened yet.
No, not yet. Yeah.
So, how many? Well, I guess there's a few different issues here, right? How many vacations do you take a year?
I don't really take long vacations. I've taken only, I've only taken like 2 week-long vacations ever. For like 5-6 days. And I was fine. Well, same anxiety when I was younger. And now it's more like long weekends or, a night here or there. I don't really take long vacations. But probably maybe 3 or 4 times a year I might go away overnight. Versus not just a friend's house, like an actual vacation where I go into a city or something.
So a small proportion of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So just looking in terms of probabilities, your risk is very low because you're not gone that much. But the other issue is that even at work, you're still having these same feelings, and even for short trips, you're still having these same feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really living with anxiety much of the time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's been this way for years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably since a teenager. It hasn't stopped me. I've always worked. Now I work more than ever. It doesn't stop me from working, picking up overtime, working 3 jobs. It doesn't stop me. But like I said, as a teenager, early 20s, it did. I would just be like on my way out somewhere to go stay the night with my boyfriend. I was like, nope, I can't do it, and I turn around and come home. But now that doesn't happen. I may not go for a week-long vacation, but I'll go for a few nights.
So your functioning has improved.
Yeah.
And it's actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You're working a lot, sounds like.
Yeah.
But it's this uncomfortable anxiety that's painful for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't really seem to stop me from working, obviously, because I work. It's just that if it's leading up to leaving for work or going on vacation.
All right. So let's say, let's look at what you know is going to be a long work day. Mm-hmm. Right? So think of like what they said, a 20-hour shift. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of time. So you have a 20-hour shift, and say you're getting ready for work, and you're thinking about that you're going to be gone for 20 hours. You do think about that, I imagine, right? You have to probably make certain plans to be gone that long. What's going through your mind as you're getting ready for work?
Well, I'm thinking about making sure I have everything I need for work. You know, I usually take my dinner. Things I may have to do when I get to work, you know, check emails or do whatever I have to do. And then I just make sure, you know, my animals are taken care of. I make sure they got food and water, and the house is cleaned out, everything's put away, you know, stove's turned off. That sounds silly, but, you know, stuff that they can't get into. That's why I just make sure all that's taken care of the best I can. Like I'm trying to prevent something that might happen. If I see something out, like I don't know, if I have flowers sitting around, I make sure they're put away because the cats will get into them. So I just try to prevent anything I can from happening or could happen.
Do you feel less anxious when you put those prevention?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that helps.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So physically preparing your house
Mm-hmm.
so that your pets are safer,
Mm-hmm.
that helps you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what else is going through your mind? So you do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you take all the precautions you can to keep them safe and prepare your dinner for work and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the next thought?
Just, I gotta go to work, and then I just think about, I'll come home later, you know, if I get a break. I mean, usually I do, especially if I do the overnight, I got downtime, so I'll run home and check on them. And then I'm off to work, and then I kind of forget about it. And like I said, some nights it's better than not every night I come home and check on them. But some nights I just get started and feel anxious and get thinking about them, and I go home and check on them.
So has ever been a time when you felt anxious and you wanted to check on them, but you couldn't leave work?
Oh yeah, yeah. If I'm out, I don't know, working with clients, yeah.
Yeah. So what happens then in terms of thinking and feeling?
I don't dwell on it because my focus is with the client, so I just kind of think about it. Oh, I need to get home, but you know, and I just focus back on the client. I don't let it, you know, overwhelm me or.
Well, yeah, so it doesn't change your functioning, but
not
how
at
about the
all.
anxiety? Is there anxiety associated with it?
It goes away. I mean, when I'm thinking about it, but then it goes away.
All right, so depending on what you're thinking about, that can change the level of anxiety you're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we talked about in how cognitive therapy works before in other sessions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And of course, thinking, we believe, is a important component of it. You can change the way you feel and what you do, behavior, through thinking, right? So at some point, like in your workday, you're having a thought, if I'm to guess, you're having a thought that says that I need to get back there and check on them, right? Or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or they might not be okay, or
Mm-hmm.
there's
Got into something, or yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is the thought you're having,
Mhm.
something like that.
I have an older cat. I mean, he's really old, so I think, well, you know, what if, you know, something's happened to him? I mean, I don't necessarily think about him dying, but I think, you know, what if he needs me? Because he's really old, so I do think about him.
All right, so you'll have that thought,
Mhm.
like you have a cat that's advanced in age,
Mhm.
something could happen, the cats could have gotten into stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and that anxiety will either persist and you'll act on it by driving home, or you'll become distracted by the demands of your work,
Mm-hmm.
and the anxiety will go away.
Yes.
So you can see the power of thinking in all this, right?
Yeah.
So the reality of your cat's health and well-being hasn't changed. The way you view it has changed. The way you think
Right.
about it has
Yeah.
changed. So we talked about before this idea of the adaptive response, right? So the thoughts you're having now that lead to the anxiety, what we believe could lead to the anxiety, they're automatic, right? They're just popping in your head,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're triggered by certain things,
Right.
like getting ready to leave for work and being at work a while and kind of looking at the time and realizing something would happen to the cats, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's an automatic thought. That just comes without, like you can't necessarily stop
Right.
that.
Yeah, it just comes naturally when I'm getting ready to leave.
And then the anxiety is right there.
Mhm.
Yeah. So the adaptive response, we also call self-talk. That's a thought that you can give, that you can create consciously, right? That you can think to yourself. So it's not automatic, right? It's not an adjustment of an automatic thought. It's a thought that you can deliberately think, almost like repeating a sentence that you've memorized. you can, at will, choose to do that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make sure I draw the distinction. Some thoughts just pop in, other thoughts you deliberately think. And what we found is, if you have a thought that you deliberately think, we call the adaptive response, it can counter the feelings caused by the automatic thoughts. Essentially, you're challenging, you're disputing that automatic thought.
So I'm disputing my own thoughts.
You're disputing your own thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I want you to work with me to develop these adaptive responses. I want you to have most of the say, all the say if you want in them, because I think that you can develop ones that are useful to you. But just to give you an example, when you have the thought that the older cat could be sick, right? An adaptive response could be, well, it could be a wide variety of thoughts, but one could be, it's not likely, right? Like, or if it is likely, if it, he'll probably be okay. I don't know if it's a he or she.
He,
okay. He'll probably be okay till I get home. Another adaptive response could be, it would be sad and unfortunate if something happened, but I have my work responsibilities, and at some point I have to leave the cats alone.
Well, I do tell them that. I tell them, like, when I feel like someone won't, sometimes they'll run from me when I try to kiss them goodbye. And I'm like, oh no, but I have to go to work because you all have to eat. I know it sounds silly, but I do tell myself that, and then that kind of it does lessen anxiety. I didn't realize that's kind of what I was doing, but I do that sometimes.
So you were already adaptively responding.
Yeah, but I didn't realize that's what I was doing. But yeah, I do say that to myself, or to them, yeah.
Well, I think that's a productive adaptive response, right? I mean, you're right. You're right. If you don't earn an income, then they'll have worse problems.
Yeah,
right?
I can't take care of them.
Than being left alone, right? So really, for working, you're being more of service to them and protecting them more so.
Yeah, that's true. Never thought of it that way.
So that might be one adaptive response you may want to consider applying when you have this feeling of anxiety.
And then there's times I think, they're just cats. They're probably glad I'm gone. They're probably happy because sometimes they're sleeping when I get home and I'm worried. I look and they're like literally waking up, looking at me like, "Well, you're home. We were sleeping." So they're probably like glad I'm gone anyway. So.
So they're not striking you as anxious when you get home, right?
No. Well, sometimes.
Sometimes
after the 20-hour shift, yes. I have one of them. She won't let me sleep for the first hour. She literally will run around and get into stuff. And I take it that she's mad because I've been gone, but she's fine.
She continues to survive despite being perhaps upset with you for leaving.
Yes. Yeah.
So that could be another adaptive response, that they may be enduring a mild stressor, but sometimes they're asleep when you get home. So
yeah, that's true.
How bad could it be for them?
Yeah.
Right.
And they don't know I'm worrying or anxious. They could care less. Like, they don't really know. It's not bothering them. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, their level of awareness is clearly different than yours, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's another good adaptive response, that you have a much higher level of awareness, whereas you're not sure they have any awareness that they're experiencing anxiety. Or maybe a little bit with the one cat who runs around.
I think they do.
Yeah.
That's just me. I'm an animal person, but I think they do. But yeah, I'd probably think they have more feelings than what they probably really do. But they're my kids. I treat them as kids. They're my kids. They're all God. So.
Sure, they're important to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's understandable that you would be anxious and have concerns, but it also seems like you do make preparations to elevate their chances of having a successful experience, right? Being okay. Right?
Yeah.
So you implement behaviors that are practical and that have worked, right? Making the house safe and keeping the plants away from them. So I think one route here, if you're okay with it, would be to use work as kind of like the first point. I know you have the trip, and I know that appears to be causing more anxiety than going to work. But you have more chances, well, in one way, you have more chances to test out these adaptive responses at work, because it's more or less a daily thing, right?
Right.
5 days a week or whatever it is. So some of those adaptive responses that we kind of worked on together, right? If you could apply those.
Okay.
And, the thing about adaptive responses is they're not always short, right? The automatic thoughts could be short. They can even be images. They're not necessarily even complete sentences, right? Like maybe you have an image of your cat in an unfortunate situation. So it's not necessarily spelled out in English,
Right.
like a sentence. But adaptive responses, well, they could be images too. But the ones I'm talking about they're really sentences that you're repeating back consciously to yourself. So it's important to have them prepared and ready to go. So I often ask clients to kind of write them out and have them available, so that when that thought comes about, and it seems like you're pretty good at identifying it, you know what thoughts are triggering anxiety. You would read, eventually you would have to read it because you'd memorize it, but initially you'd read the automatic thought. The adaptive response.
Okay.
And that would counter the automatic thought.
Right. Okay.
Might not the first time, might not the second time, but over time, we believe it, and I found that it changes how often and how intense the automatic thoughts come in.
Okay.
The conscious thinking, the adaptive responding. Does that make sense?
It does. Because like I said, I had kind of said those things to myself anyway. I just didn't realize that's what was probably lessening the anxiety, because I do say those things to myself pretty frequently when I say I have to go to work or else you guys won't be able to be taken care of. Didn't even dawn on me that that's...
You've already adapted. Yeah, you've already used cognitive behavioral techniques in a way to reduce anxiety. So what we're really doing is we're just expanding and formalizing what you've already been doing to achieve some success.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Definitely, yes.
So if you could, between now and the next session, write down some of the adaptive responses that we discussed, the ones you already use, and then work to identify the automatic thoughts at work when they come up. Right? Work to identify them, and then consciously repeat those adaptive responses back when you have those thoughts.
Okay.
So you're pairing the self-talk, the adaptive responses, with the automatic thoughts.
Okay.
So that thought comes, right, and then you have the adaptive response. And you're repeating it, it's an internal, you're repeating it, you're just thinking it. Not necessarily out loud, although that would certainly be okay too, but I don't know how your coworkers, would respond to something like that. So
Well, they know. I mean, I've threatened to put a camera in the house so I can, there's a thing you can remote access to your house, and there's a button your animal can push and call you. And I've joked with my work, I'm like, when my cat calls me, I really thought about it. Seriously, then I could check on them. That would lessen my anxiety. I wouldn't have to go home. I could just look in and see what they're doing. I mean, I have thought of it. So my coworkers know I worry about them. So
they're aware of that.
yeah, they would help support me and not be so anxious probably.
Yeah, and putting in a security type measure, could lessen the anxiety, or it could create new anxieties.
I know, that's what I was thinking. It might make it worse.
Yeah, and I don't know which. So I think if you're okay with it, we'll start with the adaptive responses.
Yes, yeah, I'd rather do that
Let's
first.
see how that works out. And we have other options, including security systems and such, to try out in the future if necessary. Let's try the adaptive responding and try to keep track of how well it works for you, like what your thoughts and feelings were after you applied it.
Should I try to measure my level of anxiety?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So, maybe like a 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst.
Okay.
And measure it when you first have that experience of it. I'm pretty sure you can measure it fairly accurately. You've experienced it for a long time. You suffer with it for a long time. And then after applying the adaptive response, especially after a few minutes, and applying it a few times, maybe a few different ones, see what it is then.
Okay.
And note that. And again, in the beginning, you might not see much of a change at all. Right? So be persistent with it.
Okay.
Give it a chance to work and see how it does.
Okay.
And we'll start there, and we'll kind of review how you do with that, and then we'll work toward the vacation. I know that's the bigger stressor.
Right.
And we'll see what we can do in terms of planning adaptive responses for that.
Okay.
Does that sound like a plan?
Yes, definitely.